Welcome. My name is Abigail Doerr, and I am the Advocacy Director at Transportation Choices Coalition, and we are very excited to share our final transit talk of the year. We have a very fun event planned that is jam-packed with some incredible presenters and community leaders. And first, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. This is like the heat of holiday party season, and you chose to come sit at this fun event with us, so we appreciate that. So at Transportation Choices, we believe that transportation is opportunity. Multimodal transportation can transform our cities into walkable, accessible, and thriving communities. Our panelists are here tonight to advise our new mayor on how she and our team can make it easier, safer, and more affordable to get around. So we're excited to welcome Mayor Durkin's office to be here tonight. Andres Mantilla is here he's the External Relations Director for our new Mayor Durkin, and he'd like to welcome us all here and say a few words.
Well, thank you, Abigail. Again, my name is Andres Mantilla. I am the External Relations Director for Mayor Jenny Durkin, and we'd just like to welcome you here to Bertha Knight Landis on the Durkin administration's Working Day 12. We are, as you know, in a quick transition. It's been a quick transition, and on behalf of the mayor and on behalf of our deputy mayor, we'd like to thank you for your time. It's time to get to work. We've been, great partners, and we appreciate the partnership with Transportation Choices Coalition. Obviously, Shefali, 10 years working as executive director, now excited to put her practice into the city level. Me personally, I go back to TCC all the way until 2008 when I was involved in the Mass Transit Now campaign, the successful Mass Transit Now campaign. So thank you for coming here. Let's get to work. The mayor is very open to your ideas and perspective. So thank you again.
Our presenters are Alex Hudson from the First Hill Improvement Association, Beau Morton from the Seattle Transit Riders Union, Christina O'Clair from King County Metro Transit, Gordon Padelford from Seattle Neighborhood Greenways, John Scholes from the Downtown Seattle Association, Kelsey Mesher from Cascade Bicycle Club, Kristen Ramirez from SDOT Arts and Enhancements, Mike Harbour from Sound Transit, Gardheere from the Seattle Office of Planning and Community Development. So, you don't want to hear from me anymore. Let's kick off our first presentation, and then the rest of the presentations will continue in sweet succession. So let's go.
My name is Alex Hudson. I'm the Executive Director of the First Hill Improvement Association. I'm a member of the Community Package Coalition. We're a group of advocates who came together around the proposal to do an addition to the convention center and are seeking a fair and public investment out of that project. We own the streets and the sidewalks and the alleys. That's the public's land, and every now and then development comes along and hopes to build on top of that. When that happens, it's called a vacation, and the applicant is required to buy the land for its full fair value and provide compensation back to the public that compensates us commensurately for the loss of that land. There are 39 projects between 2005 and 2015 that did this, and as we're seeing increased development pressure in the city, we're seeing more of these projects come along. Typical public benefits are generally on the site and their physical form. So you see plazas, right-of-way enhancements, lighting, improvements to the sidewalk, and et cetera. There's legislation right now that's being elevated to find a new way to think about some of these projects so that they would go off of the site and have the potential to do more intangible in lieu fees. The convention center project is the single largest real estate development project in the history of Seattle. It's $1.6 billion. The convention center is a public facilities district, which means it's an economic development tool for the region. The convention center will be 1.2 million square feet of new convention and over a Convention Place station. They are seeking 1.3 acres of street and alleyway vacation, 3 alleys, and a full subterranean vacation of Olive Way. So this is a public project on public land using public money. And you can see it's 4 square blocks here in a new part and a growing part of our downtown. They were requested to find ways to ensure that the public benefits were not only commensurate, which is the word that is in the legislation. Unfortunately, there's no formula that you can just crank in, though we did try to develop something like that to figure out what the community priorities were and how they could be in the realm of fairness. So there was an open house in December in which folks were invited to come in and talk about what those public benefits could look like. This group of 8 nonprofits, some of whom are on this panel, got together knowing that we're stronger together and that our projects were the community package. They are investments in what Seattle needs now more than ever, which is safe multimodal transportation, parks and public open spaces, and affordable housing. So we requested investments in Freeway Park, Lit I-5, Terry Avenue, bicycle improvements and pedestrian improvements, as well as $29 million in affordable housing. Together, we went to I don't know, about 1 billion meetings, and we're able to develop this package because we believe that a project of this scale not only should be held to a fair standard, but should really be thought of on the level of a district, and that making connections within the community and ensuring that there's a fair way for people to get to the project, around the project, and have things to do while they're there, as well as places to live nearby, is important. So you may have heard that we successfully worked in partnership with the Convention Center to acquire $80 million in public investment. Thank you. We knew that we should be somewhere between $60 and $75 million based on precedent on other alleyway vacations in the scope and scale, and got that number to 80. So here's a picture of us at one of those billion meetings with the design commission. The project is now out of design commission and will be going to city council in order to keep moving it forward. As I said, there's a tremendous amount of effort here. There's legislation on the table to help make sure that these folks right here can help community organizations like ours not have to spend so much time and effort, and to try to figure out ways that community priorities can be baked into these projects earlier on. And our hope around that is that as we're seeing increased full block development in the city, that we can really leverage the opportunity that development like this poses in order for us to more generally share our prosperity, to ease the burden of process both on the community and on the applicants. And to ensure, again, that development is meeting community priorities. So the next steps for the convention center are to go to city council. I don't know if you guys know this, but vacations sometimes can get pretty wily. And so we hope that you'll be following along both with our process and with the legislation. And there's us at the district of the convention center, smiling as they build it out. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Beau Morton, and our challenge to you tonight and Andreas in the mayor's office is to provide free transit passes for all of Seattle's youth between 6 and 20 years old. We can do that by expanding the already existing Youth Orca program. We think it is something that needs to be done. It's been done in other cities, and we know that it works. Before 2015, public school students who lived within 2.5 miles of a school walk zone did not receive transit passes from the school district. This left a lot of low-income families choosing between long and sometimes dangerous walks for their kids, or paying $54 a month for Orca passes for each child, or not taking place in extracurricular activities, etc. In 2015, students at Rainier Beach High School and the Freedom School program worked with the Transit Riders Union in support of free transit passes for low-income school students. Students without affordable access to transit would often be late to school or truant, but students, advisors, and teachers, particularly at Rainier Beach, had a solution. The result of that organizing is the Seattle Youth Orca program, which is funded currently from $1 million a year from Prop 1 a couple years ago, with funding expected to last for 5 years, ending in 2020. That allows low-income, middle and high school students to get free Orca passes that can be used for schools, jobs, extracurricular activities, etc. It's a very popular and successful program, and SDOT has done a great job of administering it. As you can see here, in the first full year, it's been 374,000 trips taken, Students have saved $565,000, 2,500 students in the program, and it's been popular enough that it's been expanded through summer of next year. However, there are a number of gaps in the current program. It only applies to students who are not served by yellow buses at the moment, but students whose schools are served by yellow buses may want to do extracurricular activities, may have after-school programs, etc., and that leaves them without bus service home. We've talked to students who this is what prevents them from doing those things. So we challenged the new mayor and her administration to fill these gaps and to expand this program to all youth, regardless of income, including all ages from 6 to 20. This goes beyond and expands the current program, but we think it's imperative to do so, and it will increase the quality of life in youth in Seattle. So why all youth? This is going fast. Isn't what we have good enough? Isn't expanding the program a little too far? From TRU's perspective and the perspective of many riders we've spoken to, including parents and students, it is not nearly enough. There's a lot of people who the current program doesn't work. The Orca Lift income guidelines, which are also used to determine eligibility for the Youth Orca program, do not currently reflect the high housing costs and high cost of living in Seattle. According to a recent Department of Housing and Urban Development report, a family of 4 making $72,000 is low income in King County, let alone in Seattle. And it's more important than ever that Seattle's youth, regardless of income, learn that a car-free or car-light lifestyle is possible. An early introduction to a transit system makes that easier, and lowering the cost barrier opens up possibilities and spaces that they may not otherwise have access to. Plus, there are other problems we need to solve, such as congestion. Seattle is currently 3rd, 4th, 5th, or whatever in the worst traffic in the country. Either way, that's certainly destined to get worse as more people move to the city with high-paying jobs, most of who do have cars. And climate change. Seattle is currently not on track to make the 2030 emissions reduction targets. Cars and transportation make up 66% of those emissions. It's not like we think that providing free youth fare is going to solve this on its own, but lowering the barriers for transit ridership, getting people used to it, making it easier for youth and families is one small piece of this puzzle. And free transit passes will encourage all of Seattle's youth to learn how to navigate the transit system. Tempe, Arizona currently has a youth transit pass program, which has provided free transit for youth ages 6 to 18 on Valley Metro services, buses and light rail since 2005. It's incredibly popular, and it's introduced kids to the transit system. Extending this through age 20 will help students in the first couple years of college. TRU has worked very closely with community college students in Seattle and outside King County, and transit travel burden is a real issue. The cards that they're issued often do not last for a full month. And this summer, so we encourage you, the mayor, to work with King County to make this happen. Last year, through the work of Councilmember Johnson and others, the county offered reduced summer fares for youth to great success. Look at those numbers, they're great. This is a good step in the right direction. Ultimately, we'd like to see free transit for you throughout the whole county, not just Seattle, but we believe you, Mayor Durkin, and Seattle can pave the way.
King County Metro is the 9th largest bus agency in the country, but how many of you know that we actually have more van pools on the street than we have buses? We have the largest public van pool transportation program in the country. And how many of you know that we recently launched 30 new community-based services that address transportation gaps around the county? Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about how we are not just a bus agency, we're a mobility provider that wants to partner with you. Across the county, there will be more than 1 million people and 850,000 more jobs in 2040. And in the Seattle area, since 2010, population has grown by more than 1,000 people per week. You have heard that around the area that we have the highest transit ridership in the country. Everyone is also recognizing that this is a time period where congestion is at its all-time high. And we recognize that we cannot solve this problem alone. And that while at Metro we want to be your first choice, we realize that we're not your only choice. And it is up to us to creatively think about how we can keep this region moving. Tonight, I want to talk about how we're committed to the City of Seattle to finding creative ways to solve the mobility, but I need to set some basic principles around what is public transportation. First, transportation is a human right. And as stated earlier, public transportation connects you to opportunities. And income inequality is growing in our region. As we know, the suburbanization of poverty is real, and people are spending more time and more money in transportation. At Metro, we're building a system that benefits everyone, equitably, regardless of their race, income, language, or language needs. Second, safety is first. It's really important that we build a system that is safe, not only for our customers, but also for our employees. We are launching a new campaign that we're starting by saying, safety gets all of us home. And we're educating people about how to operate in the environment around our buses, how to pick up your head, and how to recognize what environment you're in. And then last, the principle of sustainability. We take over 200,000 vehicles off the road every day, but we also are committed to purchasing over 120 battery buses by 2020. We're leading the nation with the sustainable bus fleet. So with that, we know that we need to innovate, and I just love this picture. We're investing in nurturing a culture of innovation, and we want to hire people like this, people that have creative ideas but want to come to the table, and we want to make sure that all our ideas are welcome at Metro, because that's what is going to get us to partnering together to be a mobility agency. We also want to improve how far you can go and how fast you can get there. With our Metro Connects plan, our long-range plan, we plan to provide 70% more service by 2040. And recently, with the Seattle's investment of over 300,000 more hours, we know that we are providing more frequent service to people, especially more to the low-income and minority residents, and that's important. But what we are learning from our ambitious plan that we've laid out is that we need partnerships. We need partners to deliver service growth, build infrastructure, and help us offer innovative mobility solutions. We're building the framework so that we can be upfront, easy to work with, and nimble. But we can't meet these challenges alone. We need to make sure that we build more quickly. We are committed today to build at twice the rate that we've done before to make sure we can provide the fast, reliable service of what our region needs in order to move forward as a mobility provider. We also know that we need to face all the connections that we need in order to provide all mobility solutions. And with this, we know that we need to listen deeply to our communities. We need to understand what their needs are so we can provide more mobility choices. With that, we also know that our connections need to be improved. We need to have one system. And let's face it, we need to do better than what we've done in the past, and we're actively meeting with Sound Transit and others to make sure that we can build that seamless connection, to make sure those transfers are not punitive to our riders. In order to deliver this vision, we are building an engaged workforce that can be adaptable to our customers' needs. And I think it's really important. Our customers, each one of you, are our top priority. We are focused on getting you where you need to go and making our system safe, equitable, and sustainable. We're here for you. So times are changing. No one can predict the future. But as the Assistant General Manager, I want to commit that we're a mobility agency and that I'm excited to do this together. I'm excited to do this with our largest partner, the City of Seattle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gordon Padelford. I'm the Executive Director with Seattle Neighborhood Greenways. We're a little nonprofit that's been around since 2011. We do community-based walking and biking advocacy, and we're a grassroots organization that really is built from the bottom up. And I want to tell you about one of our volunteers, Brianna. She and her husband, Nathan, and their son, Evan and Wyatt, and their daughter, Annalie, live in the Wedgwood neighborhood of Northeast Seattle. And they really like living there. It's a great neighborhood for them. But they want a few things to change about that neighborhood, which I'm going to tell you about, and some potential solutions for how that could come about. So she wants to walk to get groceries. She's able to walk to Rite Aid. She's able to walk to the coffee shops. She's able to walk to parks. There's a lot of things that are within 20 minutes of her home, which is great because we all want a neighborhood where we can walk to the things we need on a daily basis. It's sort of called a 20-minute neighborhood. It's something that cities around the country are looking at. And she also wants to be able to walk to the nearby school with her 3 kids. You know, when she's able to walk to school with her kids, they get some exercise in the morning, they arrive ready to learn, and it helps reduce a significant amount of traffic that's often generated by schools in the morning. But the challenge is, like many neighborhoods in Seattle, when she wants to walk, she's forced to walk in the street because there's no sidewalks. And when she and her family is walking the streets, it doesn't feel very comfortable because oftentimes people are driving through on these neighborhood streets much too quickly, as apps like Waze are directing them to use these streets as a cut-through route because the arterials have gotten too full and too clogged up. And sadly, we know that fast-moving traffic is also dangerous traffic. At 30 miles per hour, if you're hit by a car, you only have a 50-50 chance of survival. And your odds are much worse if you're an elderly person. And the most recent speed study that was done in the neighborhood found the average traffic at 33 miles per hour, which is unacceptably fast. And her neighborhood, like many neighborhoods around Seattle, lacks sidewalks. Citywide, 14% of arterials lack a safe place to walk, and 30% of non-arterials lack a safe place to walk. So that's thousands upon thousands of blocks where currently it's not safe to walk to where you need to go in your community. And if you look at the current rate of funding and the current engineering strategies the city's looking at adopting, that's about a 375-year wait for the full build out of that system, or a 300-year wait if you're only looking at one side of non-arterial streets. You know, this timeline is a little bit ridiculous, so it's hard to project that far out, but if you do the math, that's what we're looking at. So we need to think about new concepts. One concept that's worked around the world in places like Germany and exotic places like Bellevue, Washington, are home zones. And these are areas where they have traffic calmed, non-arterial streets to the point where they're safe to walk in. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. The way we could do that in Seattle are using something called a diverter, which is just a really fancy way of saying a self-watering planter box you put in the middle of the street so you can't drive quickly through there, and it no longer becomes a time-competitive way to cut through off an arterial street. It still allows you to drive in if you live there, still allows your Amazon UPS truck to get there, still allows you to walk and bike through there. And so what it looks like from the top down is essentially, you know, Brianna's neighborhood is ringed by arterial streets where you want the traffic, and you put these diverters strategically around it so it protects the inner part of the neighborhood from cut-through traffic, creating a calm, walkable, bikeable, livable neighborhood where you can get around. And the benefits of home zones are numerous. You're creating a calm street where you can walk and bike and live and go to transit and go to work and go to school and go to the grocery store. You can raise kids there. You can grow old there. You can walk your dogs. You can meet your neighbors. You can build art. You can build community. Really just a great place to live and work. And if we were to go with the traditional solution that SDOT's looking at right now, which we're calling low-cost pathways, those run you about $100,000 a block. And at 52 blocks, that puts the price tag for making Brianna's neighborhood safer about $5.2 million. So that's the baseline we need to be looking at beating. And the cost of building a home zone, this is obviously a hypothetical example, but we're calculating roughly $8,000 intersection, 9 intersections coming out to $72,000. So a phenomenal savings. You can scale this all over the city with this level of cost, which is the really exciting part, and you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. So in summary, home zones are rapidly implementable. We can scale it citywide in a lot shorter than 375 years. And it's creating a lot of those calm, walkable, bikeable, livable benefits that we're all shooting for. And if you want to get involved, I encourage you to come check out seattlegreenways.org or talk to me after. Thanks.
Mayor Durkin, congratulations on your election to the 7th floor throne. I put some transportation thoughts together in the form of a poem. I come with a message about transit, design, sidewalks, and cement. Brought to you straight from, you guessed it, the establishment. There are so many opinions and ideas across our great city. To get your attention, I thought I may need to be a little witty. There's a chance I may fail miserably, so I'm glad I know Shefali. But I'm here tonight, and I intend to get this right. I'm here to talk about a transit corridor. Please stick with me, this will not be a bore. This corridor carries 50,000 Seattleites a day to where they live, work, shop, and where they play. It connects some of our city's best sites, from the art museum to the market. And it's time we got it right. It's important to downtown and to our entire city, but sometimes it feels just a little too gritty. It's definitely not as shiny as Mike's fancy new trains, even after a good, hard, steady rain. So many things cause me so much irk. Check out that phone booth. It doesn't even work. But I have good news and more. We've turned around spaces like this together before. Occidental Square and Westlake Park weren't welcoming, not during the day, and certainly not at dark. But DSA partnered with the city, and now the public is just giddy. Thankfully, when it comes to creating great transit streets, we can look across North America for some examples that are pretty sweet. Vancouver, Minneapolis, Portland, and Denver have all been here before, and they created transit and pedestrian experiences that are not a chore. The sidewalks are wide, the landscaping lush. You want to linger here, you don't want to rush. Look at those lights, they are lit. What you don't see is too much grit. The spaces are cared for, the signage is clear. We can do this, Seattle, have no fear. We've done it before, right under this floor, over there. We built the bus tunnel. Now we hear less grumbles. It's clean and welcoming and goes to lots of downtown scenes, including work and home and many places in between. And now if you're on your way home and you want to use your phone, hey, guess what? You're in a cellular zone. But back above ground, there's plenty of work to do, and there isn't any time to sit on our hands and stew. In surveys, people say they avoid this street. It's not a place they want to meet and greet. If we make the smart choices right here today, transportation will become downtown's mainstay. The tough issues in our city require everyone at the table. Working closely together, I believe we're more than able. Let's come together to develop a bold vision and create a great street, one that is welcoming, walkable, and well-lit, one that Portland cannot beat. While we shape a new vision, let's get to work right away and make some quick decisions. Let's decide to fix those things that are broken today. These things matter, wouldn't you say? From burnout lights and broken tree grates. We need to upgrade this street. We cannot wait. And just look at the progress we've already made. We must not let this great momentum fade. Together, we've already created a new plaza and fixed some transit screens. And truth be told, this was not as easy as it seems. We can build on these successes and get big things done. So the experience on 3rd Avenue is clean, safe, and fun. So Mayor Durkin, here's my pitch. Let's create a great transit street and finally scratch this itch. 3rd Avenue can be fabulous, not a place to avoid. When we get this right, thousands of transit riders will be overjoyed. Seattle, I know we can do it. And yeah, it may take some luck. But first, we must decide that we give a. Thank you for listening. And thanks to TCC for allowing me my first and last performance of slow jam poetry.
So, hello, my name is Kelsey Mesher, and I'm the Puget Sound Policy Manager with Cascade Bicycle Club. Are there any bikers in the house tonight? All right. I'm going to talk tonight about building a bike network for the masses. This is a campaign for 10 projects that we can complete by 2021, which is the exact same time that Link Light Rail will extend its service up to Northgate Station. So here in Seattle, we know that there's high bike ownership. We know people love to get outside. They live active lifestyles. But however, this conflicts with something that we also know, which is we have a relatively low bike mode share compared to others in the country. We're actually 24th in the United States for bike mode share. That being said, We know that people understand the benefits of bicycling and they want those benefits. If you commute by bike, you can decrease your risk of developing and dying from heart disease, cancer, by as much as 50%. The Mayo Clinic has also found that bicycling 50 minutes a week actually slows the aging process, so it's a bit of a fountain of youth effect. Here in Seattle, 60% of people say they would really like to bike more, but we know that there are some reasons why they don't. One of those is hills, one of those is rain, and one of those is that they don't feel safe biking out on our streets. And so we need to address these barriers. Of course, we know hills, well, the electric bicycle industry is exploding, and if you've ever ridden a bike, you can ride an e-bike up Cherry and not break a sweat. As for the weather, Seattle's only umbrella shop closed in October, and I know that Seattleites have never let the rain deter them from getting outside. As for safety, that's where our campaign comes in. We propose connecting Seattle by bike through these 10 projects by 2021. These projects are already underway, many of them with lots of community support and funding. And if we can get this done together, then people, whether you're 8 or 80, can get out on their bikes in Seattle and feel really safe and know that they can get to where they need to go. This isn't a novel concept. Other cities have done this before. Our rainy, hilly neighbors to the north in Vancouver, they've jumped their mode share from 4 to 11% of people biking in just 4 years when they built out their connected network. And we can be just like them if we would like to be. Here in Seattle, we have recognized the need for investments in mass transit. We've made huge programmatic and capital investments with leadership from our transit agencies, and as a result, we've seen huge return on investment, increased transit ridership, and why isn't the same true for building out our bicycle network and supporting people doing that? Just to go through a couple of the projects that are in the pipeline around Northgate, some major developments, an incredible pedestrian and bicycle bridge across I-5, a neighborhood greenway, some on-street protected bike lanes that are going to connect people into the brand new link station. Is going to really open up options. Of course, our downtown basic bike network is closer than ever to completion. Through the One Center City process, we could see some major improvements coming online as soon as this spring, which is exciting. A huge, long-standing priority, the missing link of the Burke-Gilman Trail, super close to being fully designed and could also break ground at the same time this spring. So these are some huge projects. And then there are some new, really exciting projects coming online as well. The Seattle Neighborhood Greenways group down in Georgetown and South Park have championed an idea to connect their neighborhoods with the path. They secured more than $500,000 to design and engineer this bridge that will eventually be part of our citywide bicycle network. So if we can get behind these projects and a few others, by 2021, the 60% of people who really want to get out on their bikes more and get the benefits from that will be able to do so, because rather than being out on the street and getting dumped into traffic, they'll know that when they get into the bike network, it will be safe, intuitive, comfortable, and easy for them to use with their families. And building on this bike network, with the bike network and the expansion of light rail, people in Seattle are going to have a lot more options of ways to get around however they choose. And hopefully this map on the right, which unfortunately we're all too familiar with, will be a thing of the past. And additionally, all the good things are going to result from this transformation. We're going to have cleaner air, better mobility, healthier people, and I believe social connection, because when is the last time you made a friend driving around in a car by yourself, right? So we are looking towards Mayor Durkin and her administration to have strong buy-in into this vision, and together with the folks in this room, we can have a Seattle that's connected by a simple but wonderful bike network in just 4 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Ramirez, and I have the great privilege and pretty rare job of managing public art projects for the city of Seattle. My greatest aspiration in this work is that art bring meaning into our sometimes boring, pedestrian, everyday lives. And conveniently, when not working managing public art projects, I'm also an artist. In 2014, I created this immersive mural on the Burke-Gelman Trail. In 2009, long before I ever imagined an illustrious career in city government, I was the lucky artist commissioned to use the northeast tower of the Fremont Bridge as my art studio. So for 4 months, I recorded ambient noise and oral histories to eventually create a sound piece that played during bridge openings through the year 2010. So that was pretty exciting. Back to public art for a moment. Did you know that Seattle's 1% for Art program is one of the oldest in the country, just after Philadelphia? So it's been established since 1973. Jack Mackey's dance steps that you probably all know and love on Broadway and Capitol Hill are one of my favorite pieces in the city's collection. So how does, There's a lot of art in our city. So just looking at SDOT funded projects, and mind you, we have projects that come from all the different agencies, libraries, parks, Seattle Public Utilities, City Light. Since 2000, we have over 36 works, over 20 SDOT enhancement projects, things like stamped concrete, stamped sidewalks, things like that, and many, many art plans that kind of guide how we instruct future art projects. So how do we evaluate what public art does for the public realm? Here's some things it does. It elevates the quality of public space. So in this case, artist Von Bell created an organic pattern for a routine retaining wall, making it just a little bit more fabulous than looking at concrete. It makes routine experiences extraordinary. So locking your bike to artist Susan Robb's parking squid is a little more interesting than trying to find an adjacent pole or routine bicycle rack. Public art sometimes reclaims used infrastructure. In this case, artist Jen Dixon worked with discarded SDOT signage to commemorate Playland, a historic amusement park in North Seattle. Sometimes public art illuminates, as was the case with this temporary lighting work created by artists Ben Zamora and Etta Lilienthal. Lived temporarily in the space where we're now watching that incredible Denny substation go up. And then we're going to look at, I want to kind of highlight some of SDOT's most recently completed public art projects. So here we go with the Westlake Cycle Track that was completed in 2016. It runs 1.4 miles from Mohai on the south end to the Fremont Bridge, and artist Jen Dixon created what she calls these jewel boat forms. There's 3 different kind of sculptural gestures along the dedicated cycle track. In Rainier Beach, SDOT implemented a new signal and crosswalk as part of their Safe Routes to Schools program through the 1% and got this, The King and Queen of Rainier Beach by artist Peter Reichwem, 2 sculptures that celebrate the work of community policewoman Detective Cookie and all the work she's done to set up chess clubs for that underserved community. And it's pretty cool by day and night, solar powered. While we wait for all the components of our major project on the waterfront to come together, maybe you've heard about that, we've implemented some temporary public art projects like this one. So in the summer of 2016, artist Fabiola Carranza worked with the SDOT Sign Shop to create signage for Waterfront Park that harkens back to exclamations from comic books, sometimes in her native Spanish. She's from Costa Rica. Another temporary project that we do each summer to celebrate SDOT's new neighborhood greenways, we call Art Interruptions. 6 to 7 artists are paid very small contracts to create temporary work along neighborhood greenways. In this case, artist Jasmine Brown this last summer in Del Ridge reminds us that Black Lives Matter. And I'll end with 2 of my favorite projects. You'll see clearly inspired by my own good fortune to have been in one of the bridge towers. So last summer, SDOT hosted Alyssa Wishuda, a writer of the Cowlitz tribe on the Fremont Bridge. And so she was in the northeast tower of the bridge for 4 months, where she wrote 2 long-form essays about what she called the landscape surgery. So the cut that was made that lowered Lake Washington by 20 feet and effectively kind of decimated the Duwamish tribe. Really beautiful writing, though, about kind of our 10,000-year history in this land. And then today, I'm really excited to say that we have an artist team that's been working on lighting the Bascule bridges. And just today, for the first time ever, the Fremont Bridge is being artistically lit with a very poetic kind of program of lights. that will both uplight the underside of the bridge and change the pedestrian lighting when the bridge opens to reflect the lunar cycles and the seasons of the year. So I'm really excited about this particular project. So keep your eyes open for further iterations of the twinkly bascule bridges.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Harbour. I'm the Deputy CEO at Sound Transit. This is my Deputy CEO costume I'm wearing tonight, just for you. So I want to first of all, thank TCC for hosting this. Thank Shefali for being here tonight. Welcome, Shefali. And it's most things hasn't got to my first slide yet. That's not my, yeah, it is. That was my first slide. Yeah. Okay, that's me. Yeah. So, and that's my theme for tonight, is that we're in this together, and really talking about, or I really want to get across, is that we're not going to be successful unless we partner and we do things together. And I think you heard this from a number of the other presenters as well. And it's certainly the approach I think we're trying to take at Sound Transit as we work with the city, King County Metro, Downtown Seattle Association, and many others. So here's where we are today. Ridership on light rail in Seattle has more than doubled in just the past 2 years. The opening University Link with the opening to Angle Lake. And you can see where it's planning on going in the future. We've been bucking the trend with the ever-increasing transit ridership here, and we're now coping with how do we handle crowding. So I can't talk about what we're doing without talking about affordable housing. It's a key issue for the city. It's a key issue for Sound Transit. This is a great example at Roosevelt where with the city, the neighborhood, Sound Transit working together, we'll build 245 units, all for people with less than 60% of the median income. Affordable housing is good enough. It needs 2 slides. So this is Capitol Hill TOD, another great example of working with the neighborhood, the city. 428 units, 42% affordable. What's great about this development is a lot of 2+ bedroom units as well. And this would not have come together without really closely working with the city and the community. Next, Northgate. So Northgate, you heard a little bit before about what we're doing with bikes. This is all about access. And this is a great example where King County Metro and Sound Transit worked together to combine the transit center and transit station into one facility. This made land available for transit-oriented development. It allowed us to work with the pedestrian bridge across I-5, better bicycle access, and a lot of things came out of the partnership. Wayfinding here, I think this was in Seattle Transit blog with one of our elevators, trying to figure out what they mean. Yeah, we struggle with wayfinding. I think we all do. The good news is we do currently have a grant being administered by Seattle DOT that we're looking at wayfinding within the city and how we all work together. Next, everybody wants things more quickly. So the good news is we're going to deliver ST3 in less than 375 years, but it's going to take a while. So as we move more quickly, what we've tried to do is take a new approach of getting stakeholders involved early, working with the jurisdictions. The partnering agreement with the city of Seattle is a great example that was signed, and we'll keep moving with that. So returning to my theme, collaboration is the key. And this is a great example with Montlake Triangle and the One Center City project, where the agencies you see there work together, and what you will see, I have great confidence in the next year or so, is a much improved transfer environment at Montlake Triangle. So one of the things we're trying to do, working at the jurisdictions, is cut red tape. And by working together, we can do that. We can move projects forward more quickly, but early engagement's the key. Understanding the roles, and one of our themes is quality first and one-time quality. Do things once, move on, and keep moving. So this is the point where I normally show a vacation slide. I can't show a slideshow without showing vacation slides, but I couldn't find anything better than my view walking home from work. And this is looking out over Puget Sound. And this just kind of reminds you why we're here and why we do and how lucky we are to live where we live. It's incredible that we get to see this every day. And I think we just all need to appreciate that. So I want to talk a little bit about some specific projects that are coming, the big ones for particularly City of Seattle. West Seattle Link Extension, this is part of a bigger West Seattle Ballard extension. The West Seattle extension, you can see there is considered from about the Soto station to West Seattle. Complicated project, goes over a navigable waterway. a lot of topography challenges. Connecting into the existing system is going to be a challenge. But we're moving on it. We hope to open that in 2030. The other end of this project, it's really all one big project, is the Ballard Link extension, and that's due to be open in 2035. 2 tunnel stations, 3 elevated stations currently planned. A big issue is the Salmon Bay crossing. How are we going to do that? The concept at this point is a movable bridge. I think that's still very open to discussion on how that happens. It's going to be a challenge. In the middle of both these 2 lines are the new downtown light rail tunnel, and there's nothing easier than building a tunnel under downtown Seattle. So we'll do this. So that's good thing about tunnel is you don't really disrupt things. The challenge is where we build stations, you disrupt the hell out of things. So we are going to be building 4 stations through here, and I think this is just going to be a key to making downtown Seattle work. So when we do that, all said and done, 116-mile regional system, incredible access, I think, to the entire region. One of the things we noticed, Seattle's at the center of this, and that's important. What's important too, though, is that this is a region. It's not going to work without the entire region working, and the region isn't going to work without it working in Seattle. So we've got to continue to work together in a regional partnership. So the future, I think we've got a great partnership going. We're going to continue that. My most brilliant part of my speech was the 5 slides I had to cut out, so you can just imagine what those were. But other than that, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. I guess we saved best for last, the chocolate with all this vanilla. My name is Ubax Gardheere, and I'm the Equitable Development Manager with the City of Seattle Office of Planning and Community Development, and our mission is to lead collaborative planning, advance equitable development, and create great places. And I'm going to talk to you about the Equitable Development Initiative today. And in order for us to talk about equitable development as our future, hard realities about our past must be acknowledged. Throughout our history, both in Seattle and nationally, neighborhoods have prospered at the expenses of others, depending on where investments happened. The red grids is where most communities of color could buy homes. And then today we see the impacts of those redlining and intentional and unintentional investments, where we see people of color live in those areas compared to the rest of the city. We see that in the redlining map that there's high poverty in those areas. And then also these neighborhoods are compounded by having more contaminated sites. Seattle today, by numbers, 19% of people of color live in poverty compared to 7%, and half of our people of color children are not ready for kindergarten, compared to the 22% of whites. And then also those areas that these communities were redlined, as they are becoming opportunity centers, they're being displaced from those areas. And then the city did this equity analysis that also shows this story, right, where displacement risk is going to be happening as growth is happening in the city. And on the other side, you see access to opportunity, where it looked at education, economic opportunity, and civic infrastructure. Again, look in Southeast Seattle compared to North Seattle. You see that disparities are happening in these neighborhoods. So the Equitable Development Implementation Plan was born out of those realities and trying to figure out a way to solve those issues. It has a systemic change approach and a place-based targeted strategies that are community-driven. So what is equitable development? It's when quality of life outcomes are equitably experienced by all people living in a neighborhood, but also looking at public and private investments, programs, and policies that meet the needs of all the residents, including communities of color. And this is how I explain to my son what I do: equitable development framework, needs of communities of color, development and growth, that nexus of equitable development, where we center the voices of communities of color and look at systemic approach that lead to racial equity outcomes. I don't know if he still gets it or not, but I'm hoping he does. And then this is 6 equity drivers that help us focus on closing these specific racial disparities. It integrates people and place and shifts away from our traditional focus of public institutions solely, focusing on the built environment. People are also important. We're focusing on the people piece. And one of the equity drivers that I'm going to focus on right now, since it's transit talks, is on promoting transportation mobility and connectivity. And this is just making sure that we are focusing on the needs of dependent communities to transportations are looking at trips not to just businesses and jobs, but also daycares or how frequent that happens. And this is like looking at complete networks and also affordable transportation. And Office of Planning and Community Development, the reason that we lead collaborative planning is that we're not only doing this by ourselves, but we are also convening other departments and communities to figure out how we are working with, for example, SDOT, to figure out what that affordable transportation is. And then we also are thinking outside the box and working with communities, for example, in Rainier Beach, where they came up with community transit-oriented project that looks at production, education, business entrepreneurship, and workforce training. So investing in those projects that increase access to opportunity, create and mitigate displacement while working on building on local cultural assets. And then also the other thing that we're looking at is looking at displacement, not as just residential displacement, but also looking at commercial and cultural displacement. We have learned that if we convene a broader group, we hear the urgency of needing more affordable family-sized housing, strong commercial districts with culturally specific goods and services. So just making sure that we are actually recognizing that and responding to the needs of these communities. For me, my challenge for the new administration and for all of you is that I believe that together we can leverage our collective resources to create communities of opportunity for everybody, one where we can grow with prosperity and stability, where people work together and are able to determine their own futures. This is why I came into government, and it's a future that I'm working towards, and I think that you all can join this movement to create a Seattle that is inclusive for everybody. Thank you.
So my first question is, these are all great ideas, and if you could wave a magic wand to remove that one barrier that's preventing your idea or your thing from happening, what is that barrier we'd like to remove? So I think we should start down there with Gordon, and then we should all go down and answer it.
I think one of the challenges around home zones is that it's new to Seattle. It's a proven solution all over the world in the United States, but in Seattle we always like to reinvent the wheel. So I think one of the challenges is let's just try one out. We could go through years and years of process, or we could pilot something in a neighborhood this year, see how it works, and then tweak it for future years.
One of the barriers I think we've had for many years regarding the condition of 3rd Avenue and the physical space is you got a lot of different agencies that all have a piece of it. So SPU and City Light and Metro and SDOT and private property owners. And
everybody who's not speaking.
They are. So we've sort of had this problem of collective
action. And thankfully, I think that barrier is eroding. And we've got a bunch of great agencies in the private sector at the table now that are looking at what can we do in the near term to improve that corridor for pedestrians and transit riders and everybody else. And then what's a long-term vision for how that corridor ought to function?
I don't know if there are any great barriers but to keep us from all working together better. I think we're doing it a bit now. I think the one thing, if I said there's one thing, it would be for us to recognize that we're all working for the same purpose. We're all working to make this community great for every member of the community, and do that. I think what gets in our way is, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone, is we do take on our agency identities, and we think what's best for our agency, and forget kind of that bigger picture. So, you know, if we can all be maybe a little more empathetic and think about how that works for everyone.
So I'm just going to reiterate what John and Mike said, and I think our biggest barrier is that each agency is walking in with what they think is their perceived community interest and what their solution to the problem. And I think we need to break down that barrier and come together and listen deeply to our communities and listen with intent to understand and understand what their needs are, and then come more creatively together, not with our own agency's interests, but together to solve those community interests. And I think we've come a long way. I think John talked about that a lot, but I still think we have further to go.
My response is going to be so specific to art, but I would like to see us reevaluate the municipal ordinance with the 1%, so we're using it not toward permanent projects, but more community organizing, maybe solving our transportation crisis. I think there's other ways to think about how we use public art money.
I think the main impediment to free youth fair is the Seattle process and the cost and the stakeholders groups. This is mostly set up. We have something that works, that can expand. It will make life materially better for kids and youth in Seattle. We should just do it. It's relatively cheap.
I would say that one of the biggest barriers is that we have very limited right-of-way in Seattle, and right now we allocate a lot of that right-of-way to storing vehicles, also known as parking. People need to be able to drive sometimes, and some people definitely need to be able to park very closely to certain places. That's legitimate. However, we have a lot of capacity in our off-street garages, and there are many parking management systems that we can use to get really creative, and so we can use our right-of-way to move people instead of storing vehicles.
Mine is like, I'm not going to get into the weeds, but right now, as we evaluate street and alleyway vacations, the first stop is the Seattle Design Commission, who are a group of exceptional people who come together to look at design and physical form. If we're going to be having street and alleyway vacations that are off-site, intangible, and in lieu fees, there needs to be another perspective early on so that we can have folks who are qualified and able to evaluate projects with that lens, as opposed to the lens of wanting to look at a built design element.
Everybody said, especially the Seattle process is a problem. We got to deal with that. But also with the program that I'm leading, I think we need to redress some of the inequities that happen, but also kind of look forward and do some investments. And then balancing the two is really challenging. So kind of redefining what efficiency means and what it means to really actually lead to racial equity outcomes sometimes is going to take a lot of undoing, where we will not see that efficiency, but looking at equity as a way that will eventually lead to an efficiency. But if we just talk about just efficiency, and we would not get there. So just kind of recognizing that there's a new way to do things, and we have to redo some of the policies that have led to that, right? Looking at the ethics, looking at, sometimes the policies that came from the state level that maybe were put in place in the 1900s, where some of this and racially restrictive covenants or redlining at the time were legal, right? So we have to just like really figure out a way to undo systemic racism and put in a lot of investment to be able to do that.
So Gordon, this question is for you. How do home zones, this is very wonk, I have to throw in a really wonky question for this group. So how do home zone streets compare to sidewalks in terms of accessibility? Oh, this isn't that wonky. Accessibility for people with disabilities, especially with regard to ADA compliance. That's a great question.
That's a great question. And I think one thing we have to think about is, what is the baseline we're measuring against? The baseline we're measuring against now is you're in the middle of the street and cars are quickly moving fast all around you. And that's what we're trying to fix. And as I laid out in the slides, we're not going to fix that for potentially up to 300 years. And so what can we do now to fix it while maybe we're waiting for that full implementation of sidewalks down the road? And traffic calmed streets can be accessible for people in a wheelchair. It is harder if you're using a cane because there may not be a detectable edge. Some places in North Seattle, you know, the natural drainage is sort of a ditch. So that can be a challenge, but that's the challenge that's there now. So it'll make things better. It won't make things perfect.
How can we as a city collaborate to take right-of-way back for the public? Pedestrian and bike safety is a priority.
I think that we need to recognize as a city that these issues are so much bigger than biking or walking. I think when I talked earlier about this really is about our health and like our health as people and our bodies, but also the health of our planet and how we live and how we connect with one another. And so building a movement around those issues that we all do agree on, I think is how we're gonna actually build the will to do those things, because it's hard. We're stuck in our ways. We're humans and we have habits. But we know that the way that we've built our transportation system over the last 70 or 80 years is literally killing us. And so we need to make big steps to take it back.
This is not about the convention center, but I'm the executive director of the First Hill Improvement Association, and we are the neighborhood that first piloted the pavement to parks projects here in the city of Seattle, where you literally just put some paint down and some diverters in our neighborhood. We did it on a former 5-way intersection that was just dangerously unsafe, and now it's a park. And we've like leveraged private development as they were coming in and needing to do some public benefits to build that out in a more complete way. So I guess I would just say like we just like literally take the streets back. And find ways to make that work. We are humans and we are stuck in our ways, but like people get over it really fast.
Okay, this is our last question, and then we have Deputy Mayor Shefali Ranganathan here, but this question is for Chris O'Clair. So Seattle, in 2014, passed Seattle Transportation Benefit District Proposition 1, and that funds the city to buy bus service from King County Metro. What is your message to working with Mayor Durkin about what the city should be doing to plan for the replacement of that, or plan for working for more regional transit going forward?
First, I want to thank you guys for putting this on. Thank you, Transportation Choices. I missed the first few, but I sat for most of them. So thank you guys. It's so fun to sort of be on the other side of the table, but get to implement the ideas, right, that you put forth. For Mayor Durkin, her vision is one that we all share for the city. It's vibrant, it's thriving, it's connected, it's affordable, and it's equitable. The city is going to be implementing Move Seattle, which is the largest transportation investment, working with Sound Transit to get SD3 to your community as fast as possible, working with Metro to figure out what is the next phase of bus service investment look like, working on affordable housing and making sure it connects to transit, and creating thriving spaces both in the downtown and in the neighborhoods, right, where people can walk to places safely, where you can bike and not get worried. I'm a really nervous biker, and part of it is because I don't feel safe on the streets. And so how can I take the things that I learned as an advocate for my 10 years as TCC and partnering with all of you, and then hopefully bring it to life in terms of policy and implementation and eventually dollars at the mayor's office. So I just want to thank you for doing this. I think I'm leaving with some fun ideas that I'd like to pitch the mayor on. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Abigail.
Yeah, we didn't know who the mayor would be when we planned this event. We didn't know that our executive director would then become the deputy mayor of Seattle. So this is a fun turn of events in how things have been moderated tonight. So thank you all so much for being here. Let's do a huge round of applause for our panelists. Thank you to Sean for clicking through the presentations for us, and to Rachel from TCC who planned and coordinated all the details of the event. So thank you and have a great night.